Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
And for a rare occasion, we have someone else as well as you and me, James. Do you want to introduce our guest for today's show?
I shall. When we do have a guest on, invariably they're much better at FPL than me and Suj, and this occasion is no different. We're delighted to be joined today by our Planet FPL podcast mini league winner for 2020-21. Our friend in Belgium who finished 125th overall, Dieterminet. Did I say it right that time?
Dieter Minet.
Start again. Dieter Minet. How are you, Dieter?
I'm perfectly fine. You guys?
Yeah, we're good, thanks. We've invited you on to tell us how to win at FPL, basically. Do you just want to tell everyone?
To be fair, though, James, we had Martin on last year, and that didn't help. So I think it's not the teachers that is the issue; it's the students, mate. It's you and me.
I mean, Martin Jansen came and joined us last. I don't think he had the best year this year, actually. In fairness, do you want to tell us, Dieter, about your history in FPL and a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I'm Dieter. I'm 32 years old and live in Belgium. I have a nice wife and two lovely kids, and I'm spending way too much time on FPL during the year. I started playing the game in the season 2013-2014 when starting on my new job, and colleagues they challenged me to enter the league, but we were already, I think, end of September, beginning of October, so it was a bit of a lost season. And even the next two seasons I played it more like a casual, so just not looking into it every week, just doing some casual transfers. It's only as of the 16-17 season that I started playing it more, with a bit more focus and follow the FPL community, listen to some podcasts. And as of then, I ended immediately 65K. And as of then, it was really a sort of a hobby, watch Premier League games and think out fantasy strategies with this season as my very best until now.
Nice. Were you quite into football and Premier League anyway, and it just happened to be that the work mini league was what sucked you into FPL? Did you watch a lot of Premier League as well anyway?
No. I watched the Belgian league because I'm a big Anderlecht fan. Okay. But already as a kid, I had a sweet spot for Liverpool because in primary school we needed to look up people who you share your birthday with, and right. I shared my birthday apparently with Michael Owen.
Okay.
And so as of then, I started following Liverpool, but it was not big love, or I didn't watch all Premier League games. It's really as of 2014, 2015 that I started following the Premier League. So I wasn't following it before I played FPL, to be honest. As a matter of fact, I think FPL really encouraged following the Premier League. It made me look at even matches between two bad teams just to follow the performance of your players. And I think it's really a hooking factor, FPL, for watching Premier League games.
I mean, the Premier League know it right now. We're up to, well, we don't know how many official players, but a lot of teams and all around the world, the number of players that there are, definitely it's a good gateway into getting people into the game. I don't think the growth in FPL stopped at all. I mean, I think within 2-3 years, talking about 20 million teams is not unrealistic. Before we carry on, though, I've got a beer sitting here on my table. I bought the beer to toast your success, but I haven't opened it yet, so cheers.
Cheers. I also have a beer.
Well, I've got a water. Cheers. Congratulations, because I'm still fucking hanging from last Saturday, to tell you the truth. So, and I'm going to spend most of my weekend looking for a Brentford correspondent, I think. We should point out, if you're wondering why we haven't congratulated the Champions League or the playoff winners, we are recording prior to those two games being completed. But
Brentford are done.
Okay, we're recording at half time and they're 2-0 up. That's going to be weird now if we finish and look and Swansea have won 3-2. It's interesting that, Suj, listen to what Dieter's saying about FPL influencing and interest in Premier League, because obviously you and I come from a background of SR clubs. Okay, the fantasy bit's the bit on the side, really. But I think for the majority of FPL players, certainly overseas ones, that's where the interest will come from, isn't it? It's almost we don't think about that enough. It's almost the FPL first, then the Premier League. Whereas you and I are very much, okay, those are our clubs. Yep. That's what matters most at the weekend. We play fantasy as well. So, I mean,
I think yourself, the split in the UK, to be fair, James, I don't know the split in the UK where you'd expect more fans of the clubs.
maybe.
Might still be 50-50. I remember when we recorded probably 2 summers ago now with Tom and Nick from Who Got the Assist, and there was always the question that we talked about: would you rather your club won the Premier League or you won FPL? And both of those boys were FPL first, club second.
Yeah, true.
So I think in the UK, there's probably at least half of the players who would rather win FPL than to follow their clubs. A lot of clubs don't have the wherewithal to win a trophy anyway, James. So I don't know. I think, yeah, it is interesting.
Let's ask Dieter then. What's more important, Anderlecht winning the league in Belgium or you winning FPL?
Me winning FPL, of course.
What if I said Champions League though? Would that change things at all? Because obviously you're probably the biggest club in Belgium.
We're historically we're the biggest club, but in recent years we slipped down a bit. This year we ended 4th in the league, and we're doing a bit of a rebuilding of our team with company as a head coach. But no, for Champions League, I would really say Anderlecht winning the Champions League, of course, yes. But for the league, no, I think Anderlecht will become many more times champions in Belgium in the coming years. So winning FPL is a more unique occasion.
Your FPL history last 5 seasons: 65k, 17k, 184k, 73k, 125th this year. You're obviously a very good player. What is there certain rules that you abide by in playing FPL? Is there a certain style you think you have? Are you aggressive, non-aggressive? Do you follow a template?
I think definitely not aggressive. I try to follow the herd is maybe not the right word, but definitely if you start the season, just go with the template team, because if the other one banks, you're already screwed as of game week 1. I always try to play my own game, so certainly this season I really had the top 10k in goal. So I'm obviously it all started with the work mini league, but I really didn't give anything about the mini league or players they had. I was really focused on just my own game and having the right players. So even also when playing my wild card, I already had a plan, and I really try to stick to it and don't get confused by things that happen. Even the same for captain picks. I always pick the most obvious captain. I looked at the data you sent me, and apparently 75% of my captains were 4 players, for premiums. If it's not necessary, you don't need to look for punts or put differentials in your teams. And that's why a good start is very important, because otherwise you're trying to mess with your mind and pick players that normally you wouldn't pick, but now you're picking them just you want to make up grounds. I think consistency is mainly differential when playing this game. I even looked at my the game week points I had as of game week 11. It was always around 70. So I think consistency. Just pick the players you think that are going to have the most points, and when playing a wildcard, think ahead. Think 6 to 9 game weeks ahead about captaincy, about upcoming transfers. Who are you going to want to bring in? Who are you going to ditch? And just stick to the plan and don't get confused.
You talked about, obviously, as well, that 16, 17 is when you started listening to pods and getting involved with community, Twitter, or anything else like that. But then also you're saying that you play your own game and don't get distracted. So there's always a lot of talk about too much noise and following the herd versus playing your own game. So do you still listen to a lot of pods and try and get information? How do you manage keeping headstrong?
Yeah, I always try to make up my own game plan before listening to pods. So for instance, when playing my wildcard, I always sit down, put the team, look 6 to 9 game weeks ahead, which would be the top captain picks in the upcoming game weeks, which players do I want by then. And then after making my own plan, I always tune into to the FPL Twitter community or listen to podcasts, just to see whether I missed something or whether I didn't think of certain players or a certain strategy. That's about it. But noise isn't always good, because otherwise you're going to go for a player that you don't want to. So try to avoid the noise, I would say.
It's interesting that you're almost talking about following a template and kind of being low risk. in your style, whereas I feel like people get to a certain point and they think, oh, I have to find that differential. I mean, just looking through your ranks, I think you scored, looking at all your game weeks this year, you only scored less than 45 once, which is ridiculously consistent. That was a bad game week for a lot of people, game week 34 before the double in 35. At the end of game week 10, you were 70,000. You hadn't got into the top 100k till game week 9. You wildcarded in game week 16, which got you up from 19k to 13k, and then by the time you bench boosted in 19, you were up to 4.5k. And then looking further ahead, you kind of stayed in and around sort of between 4 and 2k all the way up to game week 29. You had a good game week 30. And when you wildcarded ahead of game week 31, you were 1,500 basically, and have ended up finishing 125th. So that final wildcard must have worked really well for you. And looking at your team, though, I looked at it and I was surprised. And I was surprised because there aren't many differentials in there at all. I mean, the team, if I can just go over it, you wildcarded in game week 31 was Mendy, Rudiger, Trent, Rob Holding, who was popular at the time, Salah, Son, Fernandes, Lingard, Jota, Iheanacho, Kane. You also had Ruben Diaz as well. And you had basically a couple of budget players in Amati and Davis. It's quite a template. So actually following the template, and we don't speak about it enough, Suj, the shared ownership. People say, okay, there's the effective ownership of one player, but if you've got the combination of all the players together, what's the effective ownership once you start combining possibilities of players? That's what's worked for you here, hasn't it, Dieter?
Sure. What really helped, I think, was also I think that was the most popular chip strategy in FPL community around the fixture swings from certainly for Leeds and Leicester. Yeah, just followed the plan. I had in mind to ditch Leeds on my wildcard and to bring them in by the end of the season when when their fixtures started again. But indeed, like you say, this season I'm a big fan of the livefpl.net website. It teaches you a lot about expected ownerships around your rank, which players do you need, which players you don't, which players you need to be afraid of. Like when wildcarding, I think there were only 3 or 4 major rank, major danger to my rank players. So you also need to be a bit lucky that they don't have their best running. But yeah, it really helps to pick a good squad and pick the players you know that you will need to stay where you are. Because at that time, my goal was still to just finish into at the time of my wildcard, my goal was still to just finish into the top 10k, wasn't to push on. So I was also very surprised to see that in the final game weeks I entered the top 1k. And by just sticking to my plan, bringing in the Leeds players, I managed to get to, I think, around 200, place 200. And then in the final game week, I brought in Mane for Bruno, which was also, I think, a very popular transfer. And that brought me into the top 100 for the first time in the season.
Did you put the armband on him as well in the last week?
Oh, no. I stayed loyal to Mo Salah, which I kept 12 times this season apparently.
Yeah. I mean, you did well from him as captain, 316 points from Salah. I did particularly badly with captains this year in only 477 points, 150 points less than you did on captaincy. And 100 of that is because my most captain in Fernandes only got 212 points. And Salah, you got 316. Do you put a lot of emphasis on your captain, or did you kind of take it by week and say, who's got the best fixture? That's where I'm going.
I think this season it was a very, most weeks was a very easy captaincy decision. When you had Salah, Kane, or Bruno, if you have those 3 in your squad, you're good to go. Even if you miss the captain, you still have half of the points. I always looked into on the Fantasy Football Scout website at the captaincy polls. And if it was a clear winner, as say 60% for Salah, I obviously also was going to pick Salah, because otherwise, if he goes off, you lose too many points. So
would you buy a player just to captain him if you were worried about the ownership, or is that breaking away from your plan a little bit too much?
I wouldn't do that. No. if at the moment I wildcard, I know that I want to have him in the next game weeks, I would already include him in my wildcard. I really try to minimize transfers. Yeah, really try to minimize it. And
I mean, you only made 40 all season, same as me, but then both Michael, who won the game, he made 42. James, you made 45 transfers over the season. But the interesting thing is immediate points straight from a player coming in. I mean, 275 points. You smashed Michael, me and James all out of the water on that one, really. So when you've bought players, invariably it's worked well for you because they've returned straight away.
yeah, it's also just a bit of luck, and you need to admit it.
Yeah, I mean,
about
this game is 50% luck, right?
Yeah, of
Actually,
course.
no, it's about 95% luck, 5% skill.
Yes.
I'm just not very lucky.
No, people like I bought Grealish at the right time. I bought Gundogan at the right time. I bought Lingard quite fast. Iheanacho quite fast. Yeah, those were success transfers. But I also made some mistakes during the season. I think Son, he really went in and out of my team in the beginning, and I missed all his big points, for instance. So yeah, it's also a big part luck in doing your transfers. But even when doing my transfers, I always on the FPL website I sort them on game week in and total number of transfers game week in to just see who are the popular picks or what is the majority of the people doing. Just see whether the plan I had in my mind, maybe I was missing something, or maybe there was another player I needed to get in. Yeah, I'm a bit yeah.
Go on, Dieter. Sorry, no, please finish.
No, I was just saying maybe I'm even a bit of a boring FPL manager. I just don't take that many risks. Don't go for punts. Just make a plan, stick to it, and hope for the best.
Well, that's me. I'm boring as well, but I don't finish with ranks. I'm 125th, mate. I'm kind of same thing. I go down. Yeah, I'm kind of low risk, except when DCL's got a good fixture, and I tend to do something stupid and fuck it up. But I think it's interesting. I've not looked at it personally yet, but I think Dieter's kind of on the right track there, and I've already started thinking. I wonder if looking back, I think I captained about 10 different players during the course of the season. I wonder if I'd have just kept that amongst Bruno, Kane, and Salah, if that would have affected my rank, those weeks where I went elsewhere and looked at different players. Would I have been better off just sticking with those three players? I think if you think next year, obviously, if Kane does go to City, for example, that's just going to heighten it, isn't it? The idea of going with the likes of Kane, Bruno, Salah, perhaps De Bruyne if Kane was out or comes back to fitness. But it's difficult to foresee that someone at, say, Chelsea or Arsenal will break out, and you might be better when you kind of have the moments where you feel like, oh, Vardy's got a good couple of fixtures. Maybe you're just better off just ignoring it and staying with that template captain, because like you said, I think we've all been there. We've all learned a lot about effective ownership in the last couple of years, and there's not many worse feelings in FPL than owning a player and wanting them to fail. Mm-hmm. Feels like a shitter. So I feel like invariably that's the decision I make is, okay, Salah might be over effective 100%. Bruno and Kane probably won't be this week, and just go with it and just swim with the tide. It's really interesting because I feel like most people we speak to who do well kind of have stories of going on differential tangents. You've basically quite strict down the line in terms of how you play it. I wanted to, I did a bit of data research on Michael Kuhn at FPL_Teddy Bears, who won the game, Dieter's team and mine and Suj's, to kind of, more than anything, find out where me and Suj are going so badly wrong in this game. Dieter, you finished 80 points behind Michael, which was a full 295 points ahead of myself. Suj, you were about a further 39 points behind myself, I think. Benched points. How much, Dieter, do you put into the importance of your bench, particularly I'm thinking towards game week 1? Do you pick 3 players you think aren't going to play, they're just the cheapest, or do you go for, say, a pool of, say, 12 players like you did on Wildcard 31? You basically pick 12 players.
No, I always try to put the most money in my starting 11 and the least money as possible in the bench, but I always look for the cheapest playing players, just like everyone else. No, I don't like putting a 6 million player on the bench every week. So I always try to look for someone between 4 and 5 in every position to put him on the bench. I think I have Keenan Davies from Aston Villa. I think I had him on my bench for most of the season, but he played not every game, but he played 10 minutes every other game. So if needed, he could deliver 1 point. I think he even the time he scored, I needed him as a sub in my team, so that was quite lucky. No, I just try to minimize my bench because I saw a response on your call for questions where someone asked, did COVID alternate with your plans, or did it have an impact on your plans? And yeah, given my strategy where I try to follow not really follow the template, but follow the highly owned players. I always had in mind that if this game week is postponed or this club doesn't have a game, it's the same for everyone. It doesn't only impact me. So I was not really worried about the impact of COVID or postponements on the game.
Yeah, that was Amrabat Man Joe, one of our patrons, who did say, how did Dieter react to the fixture changes and COVID outbreaks, and how much was his team impacted? Did you have any problems that you were presented with as a result of any fixture changes? Like, obviously James had come off United quite aggressively, and then they get the triple game week, and that's obviously not ideal when everyone's captaining the likes of Bruno or what have you. But did you get in any sticky situations because of the changes?
No, I think the only time I had really problems was with, I think it was a City Villa game that was postponed, or the Villa City, I think, in a certain game week. Yeah, and I had of course 2 or 3 Villa players and I think 1 City player, and but at that time I think most of the teams around my rank had City and Villa players, so it didn't affect my rank
Too
at
much.
that time.
I think it was Everton City, wasn't it, over the Christmas
or
period?
I don't know, but it didn't affect my rank very much because everyone had that type of players, and even with the triple game week Man United had, I everyone was jumping on the United bandwagon and wanted to include 3 players, to have 3 players for a triple game week. But you knew upfront that there was going to be there was definitely going to be rotation. So I just thought, I'm going to gamble and just I had Bruno, just only have Bruno. Didn't jump on Shaw, didn't jump on Greenwood. In the end it paid off, because if I got them in my team, I would mess up my transfer plan. I wouldn't be able to get my Leeds players in the upcoming game week. So
yeah,
going into United's triple game week, rather than buy a Manchester United player, you bought Tyreek Mitchell. You finished 125th in the world, but that's so unusual in your transfers this year, because I had a look through earlier at the sort of players you buy, and before the first wild card, just looking at some of the names you bought, transfers in: Fernandes, De Bruyne, Son, Calvert-Lewin, Grealish, Kane, Chilwell, Fernandes again, Jota, De Bruyne, Vardy, Fernandes, Bamford. Those were your transfers in prior to wildcard, all quite popular players. The only 2 that weren't, where you brought Brewster for Davis when you had 2 free transfers, and rather than waste the transfer, you just changed that about. And the only other one you'd say wasn't popular was you bought Podence for St. Maximin, but St. Maximin was injured, so presumably again this was something that probably wasn't part of your plan. Otherwise, largely template players, and that game week 35 transfer is so out of character of you, because even looking through the second half of the season, constantly buying players that would have been popular, big name players. The only other one I can think is you bought Veltman game week 28, but that was to kind of cover Brighton playing in the blank of game week 29. Otherwise, always going with popular players, I would say.
But to come back on the Mitchell thing, I really wanted him for I think it was the game week after, and the game week where he even scored. I needed him for my team, so I was quite lucky that he picked the goal. But he was very, very cheap, I think 3.8 or 3.9. He played again, so I thought, why not? It's a perfect bench fodder, and I needed him for the blank game week, so it was
you and me both, mate. You and me both. I'll take those 11 points and run
to be
the
fair,
bank.
Suj, Tyreek Mitchell saved that game week for you, if I remember correctly.
The difference between you and me, Dieter, is I had him second bench. You played him, so you deserve the points, and I fluked him. Should we chuck in? I was going to say, should we chuck in the Twitter questions here and there, James? Do you want to save them to the end?
Yeah, we'll throw them in as and when you think appropriate. Just throw in with them, Suj. I just wanted to highlight that. So, Dieter, you benched 183 points during the season. The winner, Michael, benched 235. Suj, you benched 254 points during the season. Me, 302. I've got an issue, haven't I?
Yeah, it's not benching players, but yeah.
302 points on the bench. I mean, if I had a lot of them in the first 11, I probably would have done a lot better. I think subconsciously, I was very conscious this year. I want full playing squad.
Yep.
Because of COVID problems, etc. And there was a lot of times that did me quite well, but it meant I think I had 5 or 6 occasions I'd like plus 20 points on the bench, and no, my bench boost wasn't one of those occasions. I think one of the things for me going into next season is scrap that. I like the idea of kind of 10 outfield players to complete. And as kind of Dieter said, you don't, if you're going to pick a 4.5 million midfielder at the start, for example, you don't just pick someone who isn't playing. You still want to pick someone who is. But think back to last year, Suj, we went Souček. I don't think we regret it as a 5th midfielder choice, but we benched him a lot. Sometimes it hurt, not too often, but that 0.5 could have been used somewhere else.
Well, he was my, I wouldn't call him my 5th, I'd call him my 4th midfielder, although St. Maximin, because I had St. Maximin and Souček, and I was going to rotate between the two. But yeah, it is interesting. I do think, I'm not sure. I do like having the safety net of bench players that are going to be week in, week out playing, although rarely do they return the 4.5s and what have you. They're just there to cover, aren't they, really?
But on the other hand, I don't think that you don't need by default 11 playing players every week. Having a good game week just means 5 or 6 players from your team score or keep a clean sheet or give an assist. If you have one, if you play with 10, yeah, you have a slightly little chance to have 6 players going off, but it's not a disaster to have only 10 playing players instead of 11. So yeah, that's why I also didn't put that lot of money in my bench. That's which you can clearly see in my bench points. It's really low. Yeah, because probably
it's such a great point, because we have the obsession of having a playing team. We have that obsession. It's because, listen, the more players you can get on the pitch, the more chance of overall points there are. But when it comes down to, I need him as first cover on your bench, well, if he was that good, he wouldn't be on the fucking bench in the first place, right? It's kind of part of the point. What are you expecting from that player? 2 points, 1 point. I think you can live without it, right? If you make a saving of $1 million here and there, for example, that might be the difference between having Trent and Diaz, for example, or something like somewhere different, obviously.
James, taking that into consideration, then, how would you feel if you owned Riyad Mahrez for the entire season as a set and forget in your team, and you just didn't move him on? Because at 8.1 million, he got 145 points. And when he played, he returned, I don't know how many games out of the games he played, but 1,945 minutes is nothing, right? Half a season almost, but 145 points. So half the time, he's going to return for you, and the other half of the time, he's not. You need half your team to return. Psychologically, when players go on blank runs and stuff, it becomes quite difficult to keep them in when long-term, if you stuck with them. See, Riyad Mahrez is a good example because A, he plays at City, which is one of the most attacking teams, but B, and he's cheap, but then there's tons of rotation. But we don't stomach players like that when really we should, because you only want to return.
But the answer is probably we shouldn't, right? Because you could save a couple of million there and have James Ward-Prowse sit there all season and score more. Is the reality.
Yeah, but then if you look at the midfielders that scored more than Riyad Mahrez, James Ward-Prowse was cheaper. Gundogan had the ridiculous season, and then Jack Harrison. And I don't think Jack Harrison particularly we thought would kick off to the extent that he did. There was a question on Twitter from Aaron Wood at Dieter, who said, "How long do you give?" And it's similar in a way. How long do you give a premium asset to return before getting itchy feet and think about a replacement? It comes back down to like. The likes of Kane, Salah, Fernandes eventually always seem to come good, which is why I'm not a fan of moving them on when you've got them in your squad, especially if you buy them when they've had a dip in value or a good price, especially Bruno this year when he started the season so cheap, because those players eventually they do come good.
Yeah, they're called premium for a reason. I think this season there were four picks that should have been in everyone's team from game week 1 to game week 38. It was Salah, Bruno, Kane, and Son. If you just kept those, they were bound to deliver somewhere, even if they blank 1 or 2 games. You knew that they would deliver again. I personally held on for way too long in the beginning on TAA and Robo. I kept them for the 9 whole games.
This is the pod for that, mate.
but then
Welcome.
again, I think
I feel responsible now that you didn't finish first.
but then again, I think most of the people did. Everyone thought that it would that Liverpool would get the machine running again as the season before. But yeah, I think if you have one of the 4 premiums, two Spurs, Mo, Bruno, one of Robo TAA, and one City player, yeah.
Yes, just stick with the safe pick in Diaz, and you're good to
Diaz
go.
or Stones. And yeah, I think just build a spine of your team around teams that are in form, not only at the moment, just in form for the season. Like that's why I Leeds is also one of those teams that were really in form FPL wise for the season, and then I won't sell any of them just if they had a bad run of two or three game weeks, because they're premium for a reason. Just like
what about 4 or 5 game weeks?
No,
6 or 7 game weeks. It's difficult. At some point,
they're also captaincy material. Those are the players who which you want to captain in certain game weeks. So no, I wouldn't sell them.
Okay,
I don't think so.
It's interesting.
So obviously, they're also highly owned. So if you
it
sell
can
them,
hurt you. It can hurt you quite badly if you don't own them, for sure. You don't struggle with the issue of your club team affecting your decision making because you don't. Obviously, you mentioned Liverpool, but what about kind of national allegiance? Do you gravitate towards, because there's been and there are some stellar Belgian talents in the Premier League. Kevin De Bruyne, Tielemans. In the past, we've got Hazard, and Lukaku, and the list is ridiculous. Yeah. Does that ever get in the way?
No, in recent seasons, no. When I started playing FPL, I am a big Lukaku fan. Like since he's from he's a homegrown boy from Anderlecht. So when I wasn't playing FPL seriously, I always had Lukaku in my team because I'm a fan of Lukaku, and I didn't look at fixtures or ownership. So no, you really need to try to avoid to avoid having the players you like the players you like as a fan in your team. Yeah, that's not a very good idea.
Yeah, I get sucked in with Antonio every time, or whenever a West Ham player like Jesse Lingard does well, because then after his first 6 or 7 game weeks, Jesse Lingard didn't really deliver anything afterwards, to be fair with you. But I can see how easy it is to get sucked in. I mean, you never know, James. Lukaku might be back next season in the Premier League.
Well, is he Kane's replacement, is he?
Is he? Chelsea maybe sniffing around, go back there?
Chelsea quite possibly, as discussed on COTC on Friday. To go back to captain points, quite interesting. So Michael won it 662 captain points. Phenomenal. He had a game week average of 70.5 points per game week. That's what you needed to win it. Dieter, you had 68.4 as a weekly average, 620 captain points in total. Mine, Suj, average 60.7 per week, 524 captain points. Yours, 59.6 game week average, 477 captaincy points.
Captain was crap for me. We talked about this pod, right? Saying what did we do not as well as Dieter did or Michael did. And the consistency is massive, Jez. You talk about average points per week. Game week 1 to 10, I was 10 points less. Game week 11 to 19, I was 10 points less. Game week 29 to 38, I was 10 points less. It's not like there was one period in the season where you were better than me and I just had a shocker. It was consistently throughout the entire season, 10 points a game week across the entire season. So I think consistency is what I take away from that, James. But I don't know why my captaincy picks were so bad.
You remember last year, I think I had under 400 points for captains. Last year, absolutely abysmal last season. So my captaincy returns actually improved quite a lot this year, but it's still miles behind, obviously, Dieter's level and stuff. And I think it's that where I've gone on the tangents and gone, Calvert-Lewin at home to Newcastle, Calvert-Lewin at home to Palace, or it was the other one, Sheffield United, where the majority of times it's just not worked out for me. Occasionally it has, but most of the time it doesn't. That feels like the the big difference in terms of why I'm so far behind. I mean, it's worth saying 620 points for captaincy. That's insane, really, when you think about it across 38 game weeks. That's a monster total.
It's boring to always captain Salah, Bruno, and Kane, but yeah, they're captain material for a reason. Even if DCL is on a streak, he's not the best forward in the world. He's not going to keep the momentum going for an entire season. It's not someone you can trust blindly that he will deliver you points. While the premium picks like a Mo, a Kane, a Fernandes, you have much more confidence in them to deliver the goods than other players.
Would you describe yourself, Dieter, as quite a patient manager?
Yes. You don't need to panic. But it's an end-to-end story. If you have a team of players that are highly owned, you know that if they don't deliver, everyone around your rank they won't deliver, and you won't lose too many places. But that's a bit the second thing of expected ownership. If you have a player which has above 100% ownership, you won't celebrate when he scores a goal because it won't move my rank even one place. So that's a bit the boring thing. At the end of the season, when Fernandes scored, it didn't affect my rank neither positively or negatively. So that's a bit of pity. That's the downside of looking too deep into the ownerships and expected ownerships. It takes a bit of the fun out of watching football games. So even if you have him in your team, you won't be able to celebrate when he scores or when he hauls.
I noticed you only took 24 points in hits last season. Michael, who won it, took 36. So you only took 28 yourself.
Yeah.
I took 44, and a lot of them were in the first 12 to 14 game weeks or so, actually, because that was quite insistent. I wasn't going to use that first wild card early. I noticed there was a table at Live FPL Net. You mentioned earlier, Dieter, they put a table out earlier, and there is a correlation between the more hits, the worse your rank is.
Really?
Seemed to be the correlation when they kind of grouped like top 100, top 10k, top 100k, 100k to 200k, etc. And the bigger the rank, the more hits were taken, actually.
So what went wrong with me? Because
you just shit, mate.
Yeah. Well, no,
you forgot to activate your free hit.
My free hit is ridiculous. But Billy Hadaway on Twitter did ask that question. He said, "What was Dieter's strategy on taking hits? Do you 24? So what's that in a season? Six over an entire season. It's not many."
No, just try. Yeah, and when I do them, it's when I have two free. Mostly, I try to build up to two frees. Then can make 3 transfers from -4, which probably will repay itself if you bring in 3 good players for the -4. I don't think that hits there aren't worth. There's a 4 points you lose. No, I really try to minimize the hits as much as possible. I even don't think that in the second half of the season, I think maybe 1 hit or 2 hits. I think most of my hits were even in the first half of the season to correct some wrongs. I did, but just try to minimize them. But it all started with a good wildcard planning. If your wildcard team is okay, then normally you shouldn't take hits. It's just like James said, bringing in Mitchell. It might seem strange at that moment. I even texted a colleague to say I just did the most boring transfer ever in a triple game week, but it was just part of the plan to have him for the next game weeks instead of the game week 35. So.
There's something that annoys me, Suj, right? So first wild card, the 3 of us all did it in game week 16. Dieter scored 55, I scored 59, you scored 60. Then wild card 2, we all did 31, all 3 of us. Dieter scored 77, me 64, you 66. We're not miles away here. And even if I look at bench boost, game week 19, Dieter's was 125, mine was 131.
Mine was particularly bad. I think
that's why I didn't mention it.
Yeah, we joke about my free hit that I missed it. I actually think as much as I only scored 17 points, when I free hit later in the season, I did okay. It was that bench boost that messed me up that week. I had just some players went off and some didn't, and I was 50 points behind off the back of that.
So if we look at that, and I've not drilled into kind of the actual bench points, for example, but say just comparing me and Dieter for a second. So game week 19, we both bench boost. I beat Dieter by 6 points. Free hit, we both did in game week 18. I beat Dieter by 7 points. Triple captain, we both did game week 26. I beat Dieter by 4 points. I beat him all over them, but he's just murked me over the whole season.
Yeah.
So then that goes back to another conversation in terms of what's the value of the chips. And am I doing it right because I've followed the strategy that obviously another very good player is doing as well? That seems right. And we're scoring similar. So, I mean, to be fair, those weeks I mentioned were two of my best game weeks of the whole season, right? Where you've had better consistency. But I'm not a million miles off there. And I think for me, I get so head spun about planning for strategy and stuff, don't I, Suj?
Yeah, for sure. And combine it with something else. So we were talking just a little bit earlier about having a strong 11 and who gives a monkeys about the bench players coming on or coming not. James, you obviously invested a little bit more in your bench than Dieter did over the season. You needed a bench player 17 times. Dieter, you benched. You spent less money on your bench. You needed a bench player 16 times. So over the course of the season, in the end, James, regardless of how much money you put in your bench, you needed the same number of bench players. I needed a few more in 23. Michael Kuhn needed 32 players to come off the bench over the season, which seems crazy.
Yeah, but I haven't looked. He might have been taking a piss with goalkeepers or something.
Oh, okay, yeah, true.
You never know, right?
But that's double the number of auto subs that Dieter had. But it kind of goes to show that, maybe sod the bench because you're not going to use them that often if you have a solid 11.
I've put more value than Dieter into terms of bench value this season, and it's got me 7 more points across the whole season, essentially. So it's not worth it, is it? I'm better off ending up many game weeks with 9 or 10 players if that's what it becomes. So I think that's a key learning for me starting next season is fifth midfielder. As much as I rate Souček, fine. If I wanted Souček the equivalent next season, he's got to be the 4th rather than the 5th midfielder, and the 5th one's got. Or I'm playing 3-5-2, for example, and going with Brewster or Davis up front or whomever the equivalent is. I think that's the learning. I went too strong, and it's easy to say in hindsight because I think a lot of us were so conscious because of COVID and whatnot. So it was a strange season. But I think next year, now scrap that off. I wouldn't say that I was like that just because of COVID. I'd say that was probably my playing style anyway beforehand, was to be a little bit more conscious of the strength of depth of my team, picking. I mean, do you at the start, Dieter, would you pick a pool of, say, like have it in across your 5 defenders? Would you consider having, say, let's say Trent and Diaz as a main 2 and then choosing week on week between other 3 that rotate? Or would you just get a 3 and then go, well, I'm having Tyreek Mitchell and another shit one?
No, yeah, I would definitely look for the 3 I really want for 4 to 6 or 8 game weeks instead of rotating. Because if you rotate, you're just going to you screw yourself up because you can't predict the clean sheets. I just same with the keeper. I just in the beginning of the season I bought McCarthy. I put him in McCarthy in my squad, and I just kept him as a starting player for, I don't know, I think first 10, 15 games. No, I don't try to rotate. I just pick the starting 11, which I like for the upcoming 6 game weeks, and I just try to keep it that way.
Do you have a preference on formation or where you put your players? Because just looking at points by position, obviously defensively you scored 682 points, which is nearly the same as Michael, but that's almost 100 more than James and me put together. And midfield you scored 100 more points, but strikers less so. Do you generally look at a formation or positions that you prefer or more players?
No, mostly, there are 3 formations which I like the most. Is 4-4-2, 3-5-2, and 3-4-3. But this season, I mostly played with just 2 strikers, and then depends when it really depends on form in defense. When a top team has a nice run of good fixtures, I always try to double up. I got the clean sheet streak from Man City with Diaz and Stones. Then you know that each game week you have really plus 12 points just to start with, and that really helps. So in that moment, I played 4-4-2 because I wanted the Man City. I always had, I think, one of Robo and TA and another other defender. And then midfield, yeah, if you have Son, Kane, Bruno, then you just most of the time I competed with Rafinha or with Jota. And by having the premiums in midfield and Kane, yeah, it's pushes you into only 2 strikers up front instead of 3. So I really the most preferred team structure is for me it's 3-5-2 because midfielders just deliver the most points per goal, and assist points, clean sheet points. So
the cheeky 1 pointer for a clean sheet does
Yes,
add up over a
exactly.
season as well.
It's interesting because we had a conversation. I don't really want to bring Sky Fantasy into this, but you and I had a conversation on our podcast last Wednesday, Suj, about you'd ended up with 4-4-2 quite a lot in Sky.
Yeah.
And actually, a lot of the midfielders, the Salahs, Manes, etc., in Sky Fantasy, they're all classified as forwards. So the difference of what Suj was behind me in forwards wasn't worth him having them extra midfielders quite a way off. If you compare, say, Dieter's gone 2 up front the majority of the season because he's had like a Brewster or Davis. He's like 100 points behind me in forwards, but he's 100 points ahead. He's 200 points ahead of me in midfielders.
Yeah,
that's the key point. He's right there. I think I got blinded a lot this year because Antonio, Bamford,
we had such a pool of that 6 to 8 million.
At some point or another, there was so many people in there, and I know there's others I've forgotten who people be screaming, where it felt like it was so easy to have Kane plus 2 of them. So
Ings,
easy.
Bamford, all of them, chuck them in the mix.
I mean, there'd be loads of people to finish with, say, Kane, Bamford, Antonio, for example. You look at that and go, yeah, great. But I think consciously as well, if I'm going to scrap a player as well, the chances are if you get a 4.5 million forward, generally is going to be shit. I've had that before, Suj, where I've had Isaac Success and people like that. You've got obviously Brewsters and Davises this year. If they get on for you and get a 1 pointer, hey, come on and get a 1 pointer for you. That's almost the easiest place to sacrifice the money. Admittedly, it's more expensive than a 4.0 defender, but the 5 in midfield is, I don't think I could say now because you haven't seen the prices or anything, right? I mean, if Brentford have gone up and even Tony's 5.5 million open daily season means it'll be an 80% of teams, for example. So the pricing of players is important, but I think, yeah, I'm maybe leaning towards I need to go 5 in midfield next year. Find a way to do that.
And a 4.5 million defender, I mean, you can get a Dallas or an Ayling, or there's a list of 4.5 million defenders that are half decent. There's no 4.5 million strikers. And you're really lucky with the 4.5 million midfielder. I mean, what, Smith Rowe or someone that did okay this year. But yeah, I'd rather have 4.5 million defenders and bench them because they're likely to play and you never know, you get a clean sheet. But yeah, 3-5-2, I think, is what I'm looking at next season as well, Jane. 3-5-2 or 4-4-2.
Is that how you normally? Because I know you said you got the 3 formations you like there, Dieter. Was that a conscious thing of yours this year? Because you must have had periods where you cut because of those forwards that I mentioned. You must have wavered a bit yourself and thought, "Oh, do I need 3 up front?" Did you think about that or a lot, or were you kind of very strict to? I've got a shit forward. I'm not going to play around with it. That's what I'm doing. I'm going 5 in midfield because you nearly did that nearly all season.
Yeah, no, I just stick to the plan. I knew I chose for the 5 midfielders for a reason. They had either good fixtures or I wanted to captain them. I chose for a structure, and yeah, I was really in the final game weeks. I didn't have Antonio, and he had a quite high expected ownership in the top 10K. So I was very lucky that he didn't score a hat trick or even 4 goals like last season. But yeah, it just didn't fit the structure, and yeah, you just need to don't have FOMO. Just think, yeah, okay, I don't have him, but I have another plan. Maybe it's up front. It's equally you have 50% chance that your plan wins or the other plan. Yeah, the other players, the other FPL players who opt for Antonio, they are not sure that he will score. So your guess is as good as mine guess. So it's a big game of luck also. If Antonio went on a fire streak at the end of the season, I would even drop out of the top 10K. So,
but he wasn't tired, so you were all right, mate.
I wanted to ask you about game week 34, which was your lowest score of the season, 34 points. Your lowest rank of the season, 5.3 million. I'm like, okay, that's a bad game week. About half your team weren't playing. You kind of had no Jota, no Fernandez, no Trent, because no Salah. None of these guys had a game. Were you not at any point tempted? You know what I mean? Fernandez, Salah, Jota, Trent. To think, sod it. I can just have zero from. That's a lot of money. I don't even want to do the maths, James, on how much money that is. But you're talking about what, 12, 10, 11, 23. You're talking about nearly 35 million there.
But the alternative was taking hits and bringing players that I wouldn't need for the rest of the season. So we're just the pain to swallow. And then I knew that in the upcoming games it would be better for me. Those who would score high in game week 34 wouldn't score high in 35, 36, 37, 38. So, and I think in the end it didn't affect my rank that much. I think I dropped
a couple hundred places.
Yeah. So
it's all right when you're up that high. It's a couple of hundred places. If it were my rank, it would be a couple of 100,000 places.
I mean, it's a calculated risk, isn't it?
It takes cojones. That's what
you went into
it to do that and say, you know what, sod it. I'm gonna go without him.
But it's worked, isn't it? Dieter's gone into it 293rd. He's taken the bad game week, dropped to 405th. Actually, dropped another 15 places in game week 35, and recovered from 420th to finish 125th. In the last 3 game weeks. He's got a planned strategy and he's stuck to the philosophy. He's gone, okay, we never think that. We always panic. I get that so much on my deadline stream. I have to sell this player for this player this week. But I have to say to people, you're going to want that. You're going to want to reverse that transfer next week. Sometimes you've got to suck it up and say, this week's going to hit. I'll be in a better place next week. Then you start getting other injuries and other stuff. You start getting, that's when you get silly. -8s are coming out and stuff like that. And there's a time and a place for hits, etc., where we all have to take the -4 or -8, etc.
Of course, we never knew. Like, if games get postponed because of writing fans, I
think if you've got a clear strategy and idea of what you want to do, and it's easy. Like Dieter said there, you've got to try and avoid the FOMO. The problem is 95% of people listen to this go, I've got a big problem with FOMO in FPL. I mean, how you see it every week, hiding behind the sofa, hiding behind the curtains, whatever. I don't own Kane. I don't own Salah. You've solved the problem, haven't you? Make the game boring and we've all got to have the same 3 or 4 premium players and no one sits behind the sofa. It's not easy to deal with the FOMO for a lot of people.
But it really helps. In my game week 31 wildcard, I really wrote down in each game week, if all went to plan, I did that player for that player, that player for that player, and it really helps to avoid FOMO. You just you just pick the strategy, you listen to players you wanted to bring in, and you just kept to the plan. That helps keep the bigger picture in mind, keep the road to game week 38 in mind. That helps to not take hits in game week 34, because if I do transfer in that kind of player, I won't be able to take Rafinha in 37 or Bamford in 35. So that just helps to keep sticking to the plan.
Do you know what? It's also a problem, James. As bad as FOMO is, when people have made a decision in their mind, especially when it's slightly differential, and then justify it to themselves as much as they possibly can as the right decision, where it's like, okay, I really want to get this player in. Let me go and look at the stats, and then manipulating the way they're looking at the stats because they've already made that decision in their head about what direction they want to go in. And then stick it out on Twitter as this is the reason I'm going with this player and everyone else should. But are you quite good at that then, Dieter, in terms of separating out the decision and the data? Don't use the data to justify the decision. Use the data to make the decision.
I work a lot with data in my job, so I know that you can turn data into you can make every decision possible with data. Just how you turn the data, how you look at the data. You can get every conclusion out of data. So no, I even don't look at XG or XGA, or I just don't care about that. I just stick to the plan, keep the players I want. Don't look at expected goals and things like that. No.
So do you Do you ever have last minute nerves about it? When do you make your decision to make a transfer? I'm not saying physically press the button. You sound like you've got a structure. Do you make a decision on a Monday or a Tuesday and go, that's going to be my transfer this week? How do you play that in your mind?
Yeah, usually I already try to do it when wildcarding or when setting up the team. And then usually on Sunday or Monday, after when the game week finishes, I write down, okay, next week, if nothing happens during the week of injuries or European games, I do player X to Y, and yeah, with that in mind, if nothing happens, yeah, you just do that transfer at the end of the week, and you're not blinded by yeah, people that are apparently very popular on Twitter or something like that. You just keep your player in mind. You made your decision last game week, and yeah, maybe that's the thing. I make the decision on Sunday or Monday, and then it's like, okay, even if I find if another popular pick pops up, yeah, then they need to convince me. I'm not going to let them. It's not because I see it that I also want that player. I really need then good arguments or a very good story or rationale to convince that my previous decision is wrong.
So when do you press the button? If you make that decision quite early in the week, if you know your player you want to buy is going up in price and the other one's going down in price, do you go early or will you wait till Friday, Saturday?
I always try to wait until 3 minutes or so before the deadline.
Oh, really?
Just in case of any team news or injury or press things pops up. No, I don't care much about team value. Only if we're Thursday and I see that the player I want is going up and the player I want to drop is going down, and there are no European games, and I know for sure that he has been pictured in training. Yeah, then I would go early, one day up front. But most of the time, no, I never do a transfer in the beginning of the week. I always wait until the deadline.
I feel like Suj, nearly every week all season, bar maybe the first few weeks, we went, this isn't a week for early transfers. Just kept saying it all season long.
Yeah.
And obviously,
it's true.
The deeper you go in a season, the more you don't want to be doing it. I think everybody kind of has that, especially early. And if you've had a bad game week 1 or game week 2 and you know who you want to get and the other players go in and you could end up with like a 0.3, 0.4 swing, it's really difficult not to, if you know that's what you're doing, it's difficult not to press the button. And I think we'll see more of that next year. But I like that idea that the kind of Dieter has a set principled idea of, I need to at least see him in training. Okay, that team's not playing on Thursday in Europe or whatever. I know at this point, there's no more information you're going to find out. You would be, if you see the guy training on a Thursday and you buy him on Thursday night before the price changes, and then it comes out on Saturday morning that he's picked up a knock, you're pretty unlucky. And that could still happen after the deadline if you wait anyway. So
yeah, and we've just learned, James, that we only need 9 or 10 players, and 5 or 6 out of those 9 or 10. So we don't.
Yeah, if he gets injured, I get my 0-pointer off the bench next year.
Exactly. Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Don't worry about it.
I can see what'll happen next year. Now I'll be scraping to get from 3.9s to 3.8 for an extra 0.1 million pound in the bank when I
when you're ranked half a million,
Brynan to Tyreek Mitchell and stuff.
Oh man, I'm always interested. It's good to chat about FPL, just football in general, though. Dieter, like, for people that play FPL outside of the UK, do you play any other games like Spanish or Dutch? I don't even know if the Belgian league has a decent game. And how much interest do you pay to the other leagues around Europe, or is really the Premier League dominant?
I think now I watch most of the time only Premier League and the matches of Anderlecht in the Belgian league. And for other competitions, I just follow the teams where Belgian players are playing. Unfortunately, Eden Hazard isn't playing very much at.
He's at a holiday camp in Real Madrid, I think.
But I don't watch don't watch Serie A games or La Liga games, just the Premier League games and the games from Anderlecht. Otherwise, my wife wouldn't be too happy that I spend every day in front of the television. and the Belgian national team, of course.
I think that's quite the case. I don't know what you think, James. For a lot of European fans, and the Premier League dominates the other countries versus La Liga or Italian football. Obviously, domestically is a different situation, but if you're talking about cross-border, we probably have the most popular league by far.
Difficult because I think that Dieter supports a very historic football club. You'll remember my team and his team played in the UEFA Cup final in 1984. It's a very historic football club. It's played in European Cup finals, etc. in the past. But I think he probably knows now if he's got a very good player at his football club, they're probably going to go to Ligue 1 or the Premier League or La Liga. Unfortunately, it's the natural way that football's progressed. So I think naturally you end up looking at some of these leagues anyway. And ours is, you like it or not, it's the richest league, isn't it? So most people would say it's got the best football. I mean, is that how you feel? That it's the best quality league to watch?
Yeah, it was what I was going to add. If you watch 3 or 4 Premier League games in a weekend and then you tune into a match from the Belgian league, it really hurts your eyes. It's not the same stadium experience. The playing fields are more crap. The players are slower. The pace of the game, it's all different. If you're used to watching Premier League games, then yeah, it's really not fun to watch Belgian league games if you're not really a fan of a team. So the Anderlecht games, I really love them, but looking at games from other teams in the Belgian league, no, it's not fun anymore because you're used to good quality set of games. Even the bad teams in the Premier League still good, so nice stadiums.
So it was, I think you're right. It's the depth as well. It's like when you get down to like a Burnley versus Southampton in the Premier League, lower half teams versus teams in the same positions in the league in Spain or Italy. Our league is way more competitive, and there's way more opportunity for them to do well, which is massively part of it, I think, for sure. And we get spoiled. It's part of the reason I was thinking earlier today. I've been in the garden doing chopping down trees all day today, and I was thinking about the Champions League final, which is later this evening. Yeah, again, spoiler, we're pre-recording, but I feel like I really want City and Chelsea to turn it into a Premier League game, not a European game of football. Just treat it like a Premier League game and just go for it, because that will create the best spectacle because of the style of football, for sure.
Spoiler, you can congratulate Brentford now.
Oh, nice. Congratulations, Brentford. And yeah, I mean, James, we did a poddy on them, didn't we? Matt Benham and all that.
We did on our Patreon a few months ago.
I think if anyone's, they have to be a patron to listen to it.
I'll tell you what, one thing you can guarantee, because a lot of people might be reacting at the moment going, they're not going to be good enough. They'll know who they're buying.
Yeah.
They'll have a plan.
Yeah. I mean, Dieter, you talked about stats and you look at data, I don't know, part of your role and stuff. I mean, Brentford's a really interesting one that we looked at and pod. Everything is, the guy that owns Brentford, I'm not sure if you know much of their history, is a professional ex-poker player, wasn't he, James?
It's gambling.
Oh, so that was, and also Bloom isn't he, down at Brighton?
Tony Bloom, Brighton, yeah. He was.
But it's all data. It's all data, all stats and all data. And it's amazing that they've made it to the Premier League now. Same kind of thing going on at Burnley, who are hiring players through AI Scout and data. Interesting. I really want Brentford to do well in the Premier League next season. I don't know how you feel about it, James, but I want them to do well because it's different. It's something.
It's new name, fresh face.
Yeah, something different. Yeah.
Why not? Dieter, must ask you about Belgium in the summer as well. Fancy your chances?
I'm afraid so. I think both France and England I think for Belgium the top moment was in the World Cup in 2018, and our team is now going down while other teams like France and England, they are on their way up. So I hope we can win the European Championship, but I think the chances diminished versus the World Cup in 2018. All need to go well. I think we really need Lukaku and KDB to be on fire. Otherwise, I don't think we.
What's the feeling with Eden Hazard?
I think everyone in Belgium just hopes that he picks up the good vibe of the national team and just forget the last 2 seasons at Madrid, because I think if he's fit, I think he definitely will.
I was going to say he needs to lose a couple of kilos before he gets the good vibes, doesn't he? Because he's not been able to stay fit and looking lean either recently.
No, but I just think our national team just I think really it's a bunch of friends. They really like each other, and I think if he definitely will feel welcome in the team, and feel warmed. I think he will do well. Personally, I think we will see the Hazard from 2 seasons ago.
Okay, and talking of doing well, I mean, James, I don't think would ask the question, but I will. I actually think Roberto Martinez will do next season.
I was going to ask that.
Would you think it fits Spurs?
Yeah, first of all, I hope he stays, because I was a bit skeptical when he was announced as head coach from the national team, but yeah, he keeps getting results. He keeps getting the maximum out of the Belgian team. So I really hope he stays, first of all. But yeah, I don't know. I think I heard rumors of him going to Barcelona. I think every top team in Europe gets linked with Roberto Martinez.
Okay, that rules out Spurs then.
Do you like him? Would you like him as a coach, James?
I think this is difficult, right? Because by the time this podcast goes out, we might have a new manager. Earlier this week, I thought the signs were leading that it probably was going to be him. Now I think he's probably out the running, because the rumours are that Tottenham are trying to get a manager from a club rather than a country. There's a narrative in England, Dieter, about Martinez that a lot of people don't rate him, and I'm kind of searching to find out what that's all about. Why is this such a negative press about him? I think it went very badly for him at Everton, but he also started okay. Yes, he got relegated at Wigan. He also won the cup. His teams generally play a decent brand of football. I could think of a lot worse names to have as Tottenham manager than Roberto Martinez, but I don't think it's going to be him now. Anyway, I'd heard he was leaving Belgium in the summer either way.
That he was leaving Belgium in summer.
Oh, I've just broke you some bad news, haven't I?
No, I don't think that's sure.
Okay.
It's difficult to judge him as head coach of the national team, because the one thing he did is he clearly put a system. We play in a 3-5 3 at the back, and then Lukaku up top, and then wing backs. He made it very clear, and the system is clear, and he just picks the players that fit the system. So yeah, for me it's difficult to judge if the main thing he did was just finding the right system for the team. And what he did in the last past year is just keep to the system and put the right players in the right place, and also he ensured that the team they want to fight for each other and they play for each other. They really play as a group. Those are two main things that we can to say that Roberto Martinez is very good in the Belgian team. He picked the right system, and he made really a team of all the individual players. But yeah, it's different to be head coach of a national team than of a club team. I think you need to be more versatile. I think when you're head coach of a club team, you have a game every week, all other type of teams. As a head coach of a national team, you only get really tested on the European Championship or World Championship. So yeah, I rate him quite high because he delivered us the third place in Russia. So
yeah, now why wouldn't you actually with what you've got? I agree with you though. I think defensively as well, I think you're a little bit weaker than the team from 3 years ago. I think you'd have been a better place actually probably if the tournament was last summer rather than this summer as well. I feel like that peak, it probably was 2008. It doesn't mean you can't win the tournament this year, but I think that was probably the best moment was gone actually. I think possibly. Who do you think will win the Euros?
France.
And if not France?
England.
Do you really believe that? Because we don't.
All the players are so good. It just depends whether you find the right system and the right, the right players on the right position. Because individually, all the players are really.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dieter. I think
Tyrone Mings will be thrilled. He will be thrilled.
I do think England have a chance, but it's not about whether the players are good enough. It's whether or not they perform. That's what it's down to. I think Southgate can get them to perform. But it's really going to be come down to England at their peak will be able to beat anybody on their day. So they just need to make sure that they possibly can.
But really, France is top favorite. Their squad depth is really insane. A lot of youngsters. They already became world champion in 2018. They just got better. So
Got a striker this time as well. They've brought Benzema back, haven't they?
Yeah, so hard to beat him.
Oh, you think Benzema's going to play ahead of Mbappe, James?
No, I think they're both like
Whatever they do is just, France is dangerous. Pace, power, goals, defensively solid, everything that they've got. It's going to be a very, very difficult team to beat. Who's managing France, James, these days?
It's still Deschamps, isn't it?
Didier Deschamps. So obviously he knows what it takes to win as well. Unlike Gareth Southgate, who knows how to do pizza commercials.
This is a really nice plug, Suj, to say that this time next week we'll be beginning our Euro coverage in full throughout the tournament. Every day, or every weekday anyway.
Yeah. Dieter, I'm going to add that obviously I don't know how active you are on Twitter, but your Twitter followers is lower than your rank. So we need to boost that. If you're listening to the pod, head over to Twitter. It's Dieter Minet, Dieterminet. Follow the man because he talks about FPL, and tell everybody what else it says in your bio, Dieter.
Lego. I really like
Lego.
I spent
way too much.
Danish. No, I spent way too much money on Lego during the past lockdown. So
nice. Well,
have you got any Lego lying around we can see or anything? I really
no. Unfortunately, it's all above. Sorry.
Oh, fantastic. Well, look, thank you for joining us on the pod. I hope some mini league wins did get you enough cash to buy some more Lego, because it's bloody expensive. When you have kids that are a little older than yours, James, you'll realise Lego is a rip-off, mate.
I also wanted to say congratulations as well, because we've all got amazing kids. I don't know about the amazing wives, so congratulations on having an amazing wife as well, mate.
Thanks.
Nice one. Yeah, I did see on Twitter, obviously, first in the Planet FPL League, first in the FPL Fly Lance Chance League, first in the Play Sports League, sixth in the Beat General League. But obviously, the crowning glory was winning our league, no doubt.
Definitely. And being first in Belgium.
Yes, indeed. I see your beer's empty, my beer's empty. Perfect time to end the pod. But thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And of course, the support and being in our league. James, anything else to add? Do you want to give people a little sneaky preview on what we've got in the next couple of days?
Well, I can't really, because I don't even know who's won the Champions League final at this stage. So not too sure as yet, but it's likely to be People's Poll tomorrow, Sky Wednesday. I can definitely say Friday will be big FPL quiz. Massive FPL quiz on Friday.
Taller's joining us on Wednesday, right?
Oh, on Sky Fantasy, Taller is joining us on Wednesday.
Not only do we have the winner of our FPL mini league here with us, Dieter, we have the winner of our Sky Fantasy Football mini league, Taller, on Wednesday, which will be fantastic and interesting to talk to him as well. Wherever you're listening to the pod, hit the subscribe button or the notification bell or whatever else it may be. Follow to get notified as soon as we put new content out. Other than that, though, it just leaves me to stay safe wherever you are. Ciao for now.
Thanks very much, Dieter. Cue music, please, man child.